from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, for the last generation, you have a choice.
The Republican candidate
I did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations with
I
that
realized that this is something
Miss
he is
Lewinsky.
We're not going to
inherently.
be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Backfire this morning with Steve Hickson and John Stanberry, Franklin Chansey, and this morning a special guest star, Katie Chansey. Hooray! Here, a big round of applause. Franklin's daughter is visiting the studio this morning. She said she'd never seen her daddy get so riled up as when he came here. She wanted to come see it live.
Are you sure she said that, or you're saying that, Steve?
Hey, Franklin, we sure missed you last week.
Did you guys have fun? I heard that Daniel filled in ably.
Daniel kept saying, John.
Well, except that Daniel, every time he said anything, he prefaced with, on Franklin's behalf. He didn't want actual credit for saying what he was going to say.
Oh. In Monday's banner, I saw there's a big picture. I'm talking about headlines for the Cleveland Daily Banner. Code enforcement removes illegally placed road signs. I laughed about it because every year when there's an election, there's always a big issue about these political signs. They found a lawn care service sign that they've got in the headlines. But what happens, folks, so you'll all understand, the politicians that are in office that don't like where signs are order codes enforcement to go out and pick up signs that they don't like around. So be sure you understand that. Am I right or wrong, John?
Well, I mean, I guess anybody can call and fuss and complain. My big problem is sort of twofold with this. One, people have lost sight of private property rights, whether they're trespassing to four-wheel on your property or whether they're sticking a sign out. And I've had lots of people come through and go, well, it's in the right of way. Well, guess what, folks? A property owner who's paying taxes on that land owns that land in the right of way. Right of way means that the utility company, the government can come along and have access to that. It doesn't mean the public has access to your private property. So that's one problem. But I've had a problem with where we've put out political signs on our own property. They come through and they pick it up and say it's in the right of way. By God, it's my property. I want a sign out in my front yard or on my property. It's my property. I have a right to put it out there. And I will tell you that whole designation gets really tricky. They'll go, oh, if it has to be behind the telephone pole line. Well, what if the telephone pole's on the other side of the road? You know, so how do you know where to put it? I just think that you're right, Steve. This tends to start to look like it's purposeful and it's slanted towards one candidate or the other a lot of the time.
Anyway.
And by the way, as a candidate, if you're out there, you need to go by codes enforcement regularly because when the sign sits there for a little while, they'll throw it away. If you go by, you can pick it up.
Yeah, they'll always save it for you in case you do come
for
by.
a little while. They'll destroy them relatively quick sometimes.
All right, next question. The county says that they've approved the budget with no tax increase and a 2% pay raise. How do you go up 2% in pay raises and not have some kind of an increase?
Well, you either have it a surplus or you had to cut something else.
I mean, the revenue could have gone up from sales tax and so forth to cover that. That's a possibility.
Could be fees.
You know, the economy, to me, the economy's still not doing real good. I don't know how many people out there outside of government have gotten a pay raise. And I'm not saying that people don't deserve pay raises. I understand that. But it's taxpayer money, and you know, a lot of the taxpayers are hurting and suffering pretty much right now.
There was a comment made this week, and of course, I picked this up on Fox News, Franklin. So forgive me, but I mean, they were the ones talking about it. But
you watch Fox?
Every now and then, I kind of scan through and hit that. But one of the things I saw that was really interesting to me is that they're now saying from the State Department it will take up to 75 years to produce all of the Hillary emails.
I hadn't heard this one.
I don't think they put that on CNN.
Actually, I have that.
75 years, huh?
It's going to take 16 and 2/3 years to complete the review of the Mills documents, 33 and 1/3 years to finish the review of the Sullivan documents, 25 years to wrap up the review of the Kennedy documents, or 75 years in total without considering the request for Pagliano's records, who was the IT tech. Now, and Franklin, that's their actual estimate in a report they issued. They said, now it's funny, they got into it with some of the press, and one of the press people said, look, this stuff would be released sooner than 75 years just under the Regular Records Act, wouldn't it? They didn't answer that. And they said the classification lasts 25 years. So after 25 years, this stuff won't be classified anymore anyway, but they're still claiming 75 years to produce.
Well, they're saying 75 years because they know 90% of the people will be dead by then.
Well, no, because they don't want it out before this election. This is all Hillary Clinton stuff. So they don't want the public to see it. Now, that's from the administration that was going to be the most transparent.
That is, does that tell you that the bureaucracy is too thick in government?
Well, it tells you that the rules that are in effect struggle to deal with the changes in communication that have happened. I mean, we have all these rules about classification. They have to be followed, but it's unprecedented what's happened over the last 15 years, where we've moved to now where we used to do things by phone calls. Now we're frequently doing it by emails, and as people who do it know, it's not uncommon. I'll tell you, I may get 50 emails in a day.
Well, Frank, let me ask you a question.
That's not uncommon.
Would it be easier for you to sort through 50 emails or 50 letters that were filed in a big metal filing cabinet?
I don't know.
Well, Franklin, come on.
No, it's
obviously,
not that.
the fact that it's
Hold on,
email actually
hold on.
makes it that much
Now,
easier.
hold on. You understand the requests that they're getting are, you may have 2 or 3 people copied on these. So they're making requests for all these people's emails, which makes it 3 times as many emails to find one.
How about just
So
Hillary's?
letter would be the same. They used to carbon copy letters. The email makes it that much
be easier to go find that person's file than it is to sort through the system and get that. I'm not defending that, but I'm saying you got to think about what it is that's being requested here. They're requesting the scope of these requests are literally for hundreds of thousands of emails.
John, emails are making it easier for bureaucrats to get by.
To hide.
Well, what it is, you know, I got an email on this, and I sent my email to so-and-so. I don't know what happened after that. You know, that emails, to me, in business are a way to just stall things, and in government especially.
But it is, in fact, how communication's taking place now.
Well, when you request an answer immediately, there should be an answer.
Well, all right.
75 years.
Yeah, let's accept your statement. Give us an opinion on an official statement that's going to take 75 years.
I think that's ridiculous.
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Frankly, if you were dealing in a lawsuit.
Well, that is a lawsuit we're talking about.
It is a lawsuit.
It is a lawsuit.
These are actually requests by the RNC for these documents.
Okay.
I mean, even for someone to say that, even to come out.
That's an official statement, an official written report from the State Department.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Now, keep in mind, this is
somebody
from
in the State Department's out of whack.
This is the administration of a president who said transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstone of this presidency.
There is no real precedent for freedom of information requests on that scale.
Yeah, but there's no precedent for an IRS targeting hundreds of conservative groups that there are political opponents.
Those committees have those emails.
No, they
You're
don't.
making
They
them
just
go back and do it again.
took 3 years for the Obama administration to give those up. And guess what they
This is
did?
a request from the RNC, not from the congressional
But my
mechanics.
point is, this is across the board. You've got the State Department sanitizing news coverage. They had a question that was asked. They actually gave an honest answer that, yes, we did lie to the American people. And then they went back and edited that out of the official history. And then when they were asked about it, they lied about that and said, oh, well, it was a glitch. Now they've admitted that someone purposefully edited it. But guess what, Steve? And Franklin, explain this to me. The person who took the phone call can't remember who called. And we don't think it's important to know who asked for an official government record to be edited.
Of course, keep in mind this, while that was stupid, I admit, the fact that when this happened in front of 30 journalists who all heard it. So it's not like this information was kept
Frankly,
secret.
the point is, here's an administration basically very similar to the Soviet regime, the communist regime, cleansing history. We don't like what happened, so we're just going to cleanse it out of the record.
Okay.
And in 10 years, 15, 20 years,
that's a wonderful
kids
metaphor,
like your
John.
daughter won't be taught this because it's not in the official record anymore.
Except for the journalists who were reporting it at that
Well,
time,
guess
and that'll
what?
be in the
How
official
far
record.
away-
You have
you
heard
know
of the
what,
internet,
Franklin?
right?
Yes, but that
That's
was a
right.
problem in the Soviet Union, and the way they
The
figured
internet
out to
was a
do it was
problem?
they just killed all of them. Okay, we'll sanitize the record, and we'll kill anybody who remembers the record.
The internet's supposed to make things quicker, isn't it? Not slower.
What it does is make the information out there available from multiple sources.
Unless, of course, you hide it in a bathroom server at your home.
Again, not correct, but
Wait a minute.
let him have
That's
it.
right,
Let
it
him
was a bathroom server
let him have-
at a business in
let him have-
Colorado
let
that
him
wasn't
have-
licensed
Let him
to
have
do
it. Let him have his fun and his pipe dream that she's going to get indicted for this, because it's not going to happen.
No, it won't happen with this administration.
and let me
This
tell you-
administration
let me give
that
you an
uses
example.
government
Let
as
me
a
give you an
weapon.
example of what's come out this week, since we're on the subject of classified information, John. We'll see how riled up you are about this.
All right.
Okay? What the FBI actually reported about David Petraeus was that they had audio recordings of him giving actual classified information to journalists.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. He got the misdemeanor slap on his wrist.
Fine, give her the misdemeanor slap
Well,
on the
because
wrist.
her conduct pales in comparison to
Franklin,
that.
she
She's
put
not gonna be
every
prosecuted for
single
this.
record in her entire tenure on an unsecured private server that we know Guccifer hacked. We know that the Russians were hacking it. The
What
Chinese
we know
were hacking
is that
it.
the State Department website got
All right,
hacked.
did she cooperate like she said she would?
Yeah.
No, she refused to come in. She hasn't testified
She
at
has
all.
not refused, John. She's offered to come testify.
She has not come in. They've asked her to come in, and she hasn't been able to schedule it.
Not correct.
Has
John.
she testified? Has she gone and talked to anybody? No.
She has not been requested to testify, John.
Franklin, her people, Cheryl Mills, went in with 5 lawyers in tow and denied
7
any
lawyers.
request. The guy who actually set the system up, who has immunity, has now filed another Fifth Amendment objection that he's not going to testify.
John.
The public has a right
John.
to know.
John?
She's not going to be indicted.
No, she's not. I agree with you. She's not going to be indicted.
She's not
'cause
going
this
to be
is a-
indicted because this is the
because
last
this is
gasp
an
hope
illicit-
you have
because
for winning
is
this
an
election.
Illicit,
It's the
illegal
last hope you
administration.
have, and you're going to cling to it to your dying day.
No, Franklin, this
That's
is a
what's gonna happen.
horrible administration who doesn't think the rule of law applies to them. So you're right. They probably won't prosecute her. You will win, and I hope you sleep well at night knowing that she broke
I'm gonna
all
sleep.
kinds
I'm
of
going to
laws.
sleep a lot better than most of the Republican Party slept last night, as they contorted themselves like a pretzel, trying to justify their continued support for Donald Trump.
I think Trump made a wonderful speech last
It
night
was a good
myself.
speech, actually.
I thought it was a great speech.
And you know
See
what?
if he can maintain it.
You know what? He also, 2 things.
And
He
see if
didn't-
Hillary can maintain
He
it.
didn't talk a whole lot about income inequality and job creation while he was wearing a $13,000 Giorgio Armani tweed dress like Hillary did.
Yeah.
Income
The
inequality,
reason he
and
didn't
she's
talk
wearing
about
she's
anything,
wearing
John,
a
is
coat
because he
that
was
costs
reading
more
off one of
than
those
most
infamous
people's
teleprompters
cars.
that you think so objectionable.
coat that
Because that's
costs
the
more than
again
most
the only
people's
hope that you
cars.
can keep him on script.
So, folks,
When
how many
he's
of
not-
you out
when he's
there have a
not making bigoted
$13,000
comments all over-
Armani dress or coat in the closet?
Armani, well, he couldn't talk about that because they're from Italy, and those are bad people. They're not American.
Right. She couldn't even spend $13,000 with
Made
an
in
American
America.
company. You're right. Thanks for pointing that out, Franklin.
Yeah,
He's too busy attacking other people's heritage.
she ought to at least wear American-made clothes.
I loved Lindsey Graham's comment day before yesterday. I'm curious what your reaction is to that, John.
Lindsey Graham, he's a nut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's a nut.
You
He's
mean-
been in politics all of his life. That's what's wrong with America.
You mean
all these?
you mean except for when he
political
was
people
serving
that
his
have been
country in the
politics all
military?
their life. All these people
Really?
that have been in there 25 or 30 years need to go.
Yeah. Well,
Their
here's what he
history.
said. At some point, love of country has to out-trump hatred of Hillary.
Well, I will tell you that I don't agree with that statement because I don't hate Hillary, and I think that's a misnomer, and it puts
think it
a
is, too.
false narrative
That's why he's
out
been
there.
there too
now,
long.
I think she's a horrible person. I think that she will do a terrible job as president. I think she will lead us down the same path that we've been going under basically a recession for the last 7 years. By the way, you want to talk about the new
But you're
jobs
still
report?
we will
you want
talk
to talk
about
about the
it. Let's
jobs
talk
report?
about that in a moment, but let's not leave the topic so soon, John.
Yes.
Do you agree that Donald Trump's statements were bigoted?
Yes, I think it was a bad statement. I don't think he should have said
Do you
it.
think he meant what he said when he repeated it 3
I
times
think
and
that-
told his staff to, quote,
can I-
double down on it?
Can I say something about that? You're an attorney, so you believe in class action lawsuits.
I think they're sometimes appropriate.
Okay. Class action lawsuits, until you've been sued with a class action lawsuit, it's hard to figure out how to respond because it's basically a group of attorneys against someone. They took on the case with no fees up front. All they wanted was a chance to go against Donald Trump. They just wanted a chance to go against Donald
here's
Trump.
what I
Now, wait a
know.
minute. Now, let me say something. Donald Trump was probably very patient for a long time with this lawsuit. All right? He felt that it was wrong in the direction it was being headed. This judge kept lingering it out. It should have been dismissed a long time ago.
Why should it be dismissed?
Well,
One, the lead plaintiff was
the
actually
lead
let
plaintiff,
out of the case,
they dispute.
and yet they
Well, they can be
continued the case.
substituted. That happens.
Substitute. Oh, we're going to find somebody else that'll say something bad about you.
How
Wonder what
about, how
that
about
means.
the employees of Donald Trump who gave statements that said it was a sham and a fraud?
Well, frankly,
They weren't playing.
How about all
They're
the
not going to
people-
get money for
Well, let me
testifying.
ask you a question,
How
Franklin.
about those people
Whose
who
place
said
is it-
they were fleecing people out of their life savings?
Franklin, whose place was it to continue the lawsuit? The judge or the lawyers filing the lawsuit? Normally, a judge.
First of all, the Trump attorneys asked that it be scheduled for after the election.
I understand, but
and
that's
the
not
judge
my point.
agreed with
I'm
that.
talking about the lady that filed the thing. The judge let her out of the suit. At
Okay.
that point, the judge probably should have said, I'm going to dismiss this. You can refile it with another plaintiff. The judge is the one who took an active role in continuing this.
Not once-
And Franklin,
Not once it was certified
Franklin,
as a class
the
action.
the Trump statement was probably a bad statement.
You
But
think?
no, wait a minute. Let me finish up.
bad
This
statement?
judge
You got the judge's
is a
attention.
member of La Raza. La Raza is an aggressive, pro-immigration, against national borders group. This judge most likely should have recused himself. So the
Why?
because he is a member of a group.
What does that
is
have to do with that
actively-
lawsuit?
Because the lawsuit is against probably the leading sponsor that La Raza is fighting against
This
right now.
judge,
The judge should
this
have recused
judge
himself.
was under federal protection because of his
Appointed by
work
Obama.
prosecuting
Appointed
Mexican
by
drug
Obama.
cartels.
Appointed by
no.
Obama.
He was under federal protection as a prosecutor, not
I
a
agree.
judge, because of his work going
I
after the
agree.
Mexican drug
You're
cartels.
absolutely right. But he
What
still
does that
should
have to
he
do
still
with
should have
deciding
recused
a
himself.
fraud case? Really, John?
Yes, he should have.
Then if you take that view, John, then I guess any judge who
Are
was
you
a
familiar?
Democrat,
No. Are you familiar with La Raza?
minimally, John.
It is probably
What does that have to
because
do
it
with
is
this?
probably the leading, most aggressive group fighting against
So
immigration
what?
reform.
So what?
Because that is as far as you could go on that issue.
What
And
does
Donald
that have
Trump
to do
is
with the
the
lawsuit?
leader of the other side. It's a conflict of interest, obviously.
It's not even remotely a conflict of interest.
If you were the attorney for Trump, you would say it's a conflict of
Gosh,
interest.
John, if he's a Democrat,
No,
he's probably
no,
opposed
that's not.
to Donald
No, you're
Trump.
right. You're absolutely right. And now
So
you're
he has
throwing
to
up
recuse himself
you're
because he's a
throwing up a
Democrat?
strong argument.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you
Donald
are.
Trump then came out and they asked him a question. Well, what if the judge was a Muslim? Oh, that'd be conflict too. Well, what if she's a woman?
Well, he's wrong
it
about
might be
that.
a
That's not
conflict
what I
if she's a
said,
woman.
Franklin.
No, he's a bigot.
I'm
And
talking
you're
about the judge.
twisting in the wind, trying to
No.
justify it so you can sleep at night.
Well, is Bernie
Just
a
like Paul Ryan,
is Bernie
Mitch
a
McConnell,
sexist?
and all those other people.
Is Bernie a sexist? He won't get out of the election. Is he a
I
sexist?
didn't say he's a sexist.
Well, everybody, they're trying.
He
the
should get
Democrats are
out, but
trying
I
to
didn't say that.
he's a sexist.
Well, the Democrats have said that he's a racist or sexist because
Yeah.
he won't get out of the way.
So
I haven't heard
Trump's
that
a
one.
racist and
and
Bernie's a
I
sexist.
frequent with a lot of Democrats. I haven't heard that from anybody.
Well, it's been on the national news. Maybe y'all ought to watch TV every now and then.
Or read a book.
Or keep up with the latest on the internet.
Well, I don't know. Would you read a book that the Obama administration had purged from the historical record?
I would read lots of books.
Well, I hope they don't start burning them like they did in
But what
Germany.
about what Bob Corker said about Donald Trump yesterday? What do you think about that? Is he an awful person too?
I think.
He said it was a horrible mistake. He had to apologize for it, and he had to let the American people know that that's not really what's in his heart. What did he do? He told his staff to double down on it. That's what he told his people.
You're talking about
Trump told
Trump.
the people to do that.
He thinks he's right.
Well,
He thinks that
Nobody else seems to think
no,
he's
no,
right.
no, no. There's a whole lot of people that think he's right.
Who are they?
I'm one of them. I think he's right. I'm proud of somebody that'll stand up for what they believe in.
so's David Duke.
Yeah.
David Duke stands up for what he believes in.
Is
He believes in Donald Trump.
the Fed going to bail out Puerto Rico now?
The Fed?
Mm-hmm.
Congress would have to do that.
Well,
Last time I checked,
What
the
do you think?
Republicans
Well, now,
controlled
I'm sorry,
both of
what you
those.
said.
Puerto Rico. What's going to happen with them?
Paul
now that
Ryan has a plan to do a bailout for them.
Well, look, those kind of issues get really complicated. The problem for me is that if you do any kind of bailout, it should be tied to the fact that you have to learn your lesson. You can't spend more than you take in. And the problem is we keep bailing this group out and that group out. Illinois, the FBI is owed, I think, what was it, 4 or 5? No, that's not enough. 4 or 5 million. It's more than that. 7 million.
Mm-hmm.
$7 million from the state of Illinois for their crime lab. Illinois doesn't have the money. This is the second year they don't have a budget.
Respectfully, that's the reason it hasn't been paid, because they won't pass a budget.
Well, they don't have a budget because they're out of money, Franklin. They're the worst, probably outside of, I guess, maybe California. It's a tight race between Illinois and
California has a budget surplus right now.
Okay. Because they massively raise taxes and businesses are fleeing the state in droves to low taxes Texas. The point is, though, Franklin, we have to at some point learn our lesson. You can't spend more than you take in.
How are we going to continue?
That's what happened in Puerto Rico.
If let's say Hillary does win this election, I don't think it'll happen, but let's say it happens. She's going to continue pushing Obama's agenda. Now then, we're by that time we'll probably be 21 billion in debt. 20 billion at least.
We'll be in 20 billion before he leaves office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
No, trillion.
I'm sorry, trillion. How are we going to maintain anything?
You can't maintain it.
Franklin,
Plain and simple.
Input. How do you maintain losing money like this
Well,
and try
first,
to keep?
well, first of
try
all,
to keep this agenda together?
not that I'm proposing the debt, but the real issue is the debt relative to the size of gross domestic product. That's the analysis that most economists use, and that number has actually fallen over the last.
We're
8 years.
actually worse than Greece when you look at the number like that.
That is not correct.
We are.
John.
We are worse than Greece when you look at GDP.
No, it's not.
I just hope it's not too late for somebody to come in and after this election's over with and clean it up.
Well, Hillary won't clean it up.
I know that. I just hope it's not too late for anybody.
Yeah, and I will say this. It is hard to know what Hillary will do because Bernie Sanders has pulled her so far to the left. I don't know whether she can come back to the middle or not. So it's difficult to know how terrible she'll be.
Well, what John's telling you is that traditionally, whether contrary to the myth, she's been more of a centrist politician on economic issues. That's just a fact.
From my standard, she's been a left wing.
Well, John,
from the current midline where you all have shifted
John
the
Genghis
midline so far
Khan
to the
is left of you. It's a different
No, I
story.
just think people ought to be able to keep what they earn, Franklin. I don't think it's the government's money. I think it's the person's money. I think it's the person who put the efforts in. It's their money.
What taxes do you disagree with, Franklin?
What I disagree with that John and I would share is waste. That's what I disagree
Just
with.
wasting
What
spending.
taxation level? Because this
What-
was a question that Bernie
What about
Sanders
death
and Hillary
tax?
refused
What about
to
death
answer.
tax?
Oh, I think the brouhaha over the death tax is just silly.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, first of all, it affects so few people. Number one.
Really? The death penalty
Yes.
affects so few people, but you're against it.
Yeah, I'm against it.
Why? It affects so few people. Let's just kill them. That's your argument you're making on taxes. You're saying it doesn't matter whether it's
John,
right or wrong because
you
it's
make
a small
you make
number.
comparisons that escape
No,
my
I
feeble
make
brain's
comparisons that
ability to
take
make
your logic and follow them to their logical conclusion. If the idea that you don't care whether an issue is right or wrong doesn't matter if it's a small number of people, then the death penalty's not a big deal because it's a small
I didn't
number of
say
people.
it's wrong. In fact, I think it's right for there to be death taxes, John.
Why?
Because I think passing on these mega fortunes
That you
to other
can earn.
to these other
Did they earn 'em?
generations just creates people who contribute nothing to the society.
Well, Franklin, you know what? That really brings up a really interesting point.
And there's a reason that most of
Right,
hold on,
right,
that
okay.
most of these mega fortune families traditionally throughout our history have actually supported the idea of those estate
All right,
taxes.
let me
and
go-
a lot of them still do.
Let me follow up what you're actually saying, and this is something I've told you all along with Franklin and I talking here. What he's saying is he thinks that
I love
he's
when John tells
better,
people what
he
I'm saying,
thinks he's
as if they couldn't hear for
he
themselves.
thinks that he's better set up to make decisions for how you treat your family than you are. It's the typical progressive. The government knows best. So instead of telling you, for example, I won't say names, but we've got people in town that had a lot of money, gave every bit of the money to the church, didn't give any money to their family. That's a choice that they probably agree with you, Franklin. Giving a lot of money to their kids they felt like would not be good. Mitt Romney's father gave every bit of his income away. Mitt Romney, whatever he's got, he built because his father gave all of his inheritance away. But what Franklin says is he's not happy for each person to pick and choose that. He thinks the government ought to force his idea of how inheritance is
First
handled
of all, they
on
don't-
everyone.
they don't
How
take
many times
all
should
the
a
money.
dollar be taxed?
Well, Franklin, you do admit that inheritance tax is double and triple taxation, correct?
Almost every tax is double and triple.
And so you're okay with that? I'm not.
What
either.
I'm okay with, John, is taking revenue to pay for services that people demand. It's the point I keep making, and frankly, I think I'm the conservative.
You're
in the
right,
room on
Franklin,
this.
but here's the
because
problem.
you can scream and yell about taxes till your dying breath, but you don't spend, and your party in particular doesn't spend all that time identifying all the cuts in services they
Yes,
want
we do.
to make.
We've tried to talk about
mend it.
entitlement reform for years, and your party makes TV appearances with Paul Ryan lookalikes pushing a little old lady over a cliff rather than having an actual substantive discussion.
What they try to do is create the illusion that they can somehow magically keep
Paul Ryan
people
didn't say
receiving that, and that there be no effect
how
on
long
them.
are they going to receive Social Security if we don't do anything?
It's not that hard to fix.
It's going broke. Franklin.
Reagan fixed it.
Everybody,
O'Neill fixed it. It's
liberal,
not that
conservative,
hard.
everybody agrees that it's going broke. Medicare is going
It's
broke.
not that hard to fix.
What would you do
What
to
level
fix
of taxation are you comfortable with to fix it then?
What tax are you going to tax
60%, 70%, 90%. Bernie's comfortable with 9. I think he said 94% taxation.
That kind of taxation is not necessary.
Well, Bernie thinks it is to pay for
It's
all
not
the services
necessary.
he wants to provide.
It's not necessary.
Should
And
you-
understand, the highest growth periods in our country, tax rates were a lot higher than they are now.
Actually,
That's true.
you're arguing against JFK because JFK said the
What was
best
the tax
way
rate?
he lowered the tax
What
rate.
did he lower it to? A lot higher level than it is now,
But
right?
I don't know where he
Oh,
wanted to
that's
go.
true.
Maybe he wanted to go
Maybe
lower.
so, John.
Every time we have cut taxes, Franklin, total revenue to the government has actually gone up. After the Bush tax cuts, the wealthy that you rail against actually paid a higher percentage of the total taxes than they did before. And that's true every time we've cut taxes. Every time.
You leave out the fact that those same folks who cut those taxes also increased spending.
And
in
I'm
this
against
one.
that, too.
And
You're
that
right.
generated the
You're-
economic growth,
No,
which
it
produced the
didn't,
extra
Franklin.
revenue.
It most certainly
Oh,
did
yes, it
not.
did. Yes, it did.
The tax cuts are what. Here's the deal.
John, you're so in love
If you
with
let
that
people
statement
keep more
that
of
there's
their
no
money-
factual evidence to support.
No,
None.
Franklin, you're wrong about that.
All the economists who've looked at it, even Republicans, admit.
So you're telling me that the quadrupling of the budget during the Reagan years is what actually boosted the economy, not the tax cuts?
I think the two of those things combined did that, and you act like the second part of the equation didn't happen.
It shouldn't have happened because that's
It
what
did
busted
happen.
the deficit.
It did happen.
If you had kept the tax cuts and not increased the spending, you would have erased the deficit. Instead, we exploded the deficit.
The deficit did explode. The economy grew, though, didn't it?
The total revenue doubled, but the spending quadrupled. That's what blew the budget out.
All right. We've got to take a break. Katie, you're being awful quiet today while your daddy's doing all this yelling and screaming in here.
Pretty good.
Wait a minute. Say that a little closer to the mic. Say that again.
He's doing pretty good.
Oh, he's doing pretty good. Okay. So before we take a break, I've just got to ask this. Do you mind guys coming into your bathroom while you're in there using the bathroom?
Better than that, the locker room.
Yeah, the locker room. Do you mind all that?
I think there's better ways to approach it.
All right. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Whoop FM is your hometown oasis. WOOP LP Cleveland. Whoop Island. Radio 99.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or buy today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
Train engineers put our heating and cooling products for almost every test imaginable. So while you're sending your kids to school, they're sending 10,000 volts through a compressor. Testing like this is the reason Train is so reliable, and why our engineers prefer their steaks. Well done.
Ready to indulge in Train comfort? Call a Train comfort specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
Whoopsters out there. The Etowah Moonshine Music Festival at Savannah Oaks Winery is time for the second annual. Yes, that's right. Last year was the inaugural. That'd be the first for you and me, man. But the second annual will now be bigger and stronger, coming up on Friday and Saturday, June the 10th and 11th. Remember, your doctor said Friday and Saturday, June the 10th and June 11th. It's the second annual Etowah Moonshine Music Festival at Savannah Oaks Winery. That's up there on Delano Road, just in Delano. Which reminds me, why is it the Etowah Moonshine Festival? We'll talk to Betty about that later. Call Betty for that information and more at 263-0421. 263-0421 to get information. It's 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. both days. Now, you can win tickets here on Whoop by listening, or you can get them from Betty early, or you can buy them at the gate for $10 a piece for the adults, and adults is the same as adults. Or children 10 and under are free. Don't forget the special guests, the TV celebrities from the TV series Moonshiners, which will be our guest on Thursday, June the 9th, right here in the studio, as well as American Idol finalist Jessica Muse. She'll be singing both nights as well. There'll be local crafters, lots of food, and plenty of beverages, including my favorite, the Tarver Distributing Anheuser-Busch beer tent, and a bunch of live music, including Convertible on that Saturday the 11th. All kinds of sponsors, all kinds of food, all kinds of fun. It's the second annual Etowah Moonshine Music Festival at Savannah Oaks Winery, 263-0421. Mark your calendars now.
Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy the Village Bake Shop can't whip up for you. So when you're ready to treat your mouth to a taste you won't soon forget, get over to the Village Bake Shop in the Village Green Town Center. Or give them a call at 476-5179. You dig?
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, thank you.
We're back.
Sort of.
Are we back?
We're back.
We're live. We're back. Oh, goodness. Anyway, Katie, it's good to have you in here supporting your dad today. You know, we sometimes think that between John and I both, we might be a little bit hard on him. So I like for him to have some support.
That's all right. Secretly, I know Daniel's got my back.
Way back.
All right. The school system here in Cleveland is waiting on guidance on the bathroom issue. What's the guidance going to be?
The guidance from the Obama administration is going to be you either do it or we punish you. It's extortion.
I assume what they meant, though, is guidance from the State Department of Education as to what the state's approach is.
Because the Obama administration is extorting the states.
Now, wait a minute. Is the Obama administration going to withhold federal funds?
Yes.
They've suggested they can.
Well, well,
there's an easy way for the state to deal with that, though.
Just do away with the feds. Let's do away with the Department of Education.
Absolutely.
What's wrong with that?
Just accept the fact that we need to pay for our own school system.
Well, let me
instead
ask
of
you
having other states support ours.
Why
like
do we
happens
send money to the Fed and then the Fed keep the money and send some of it back?
I think that's a great idea, Steve. Except that here's the only problem with that: it's the math.
The math.
Yeah,
you don't think the state?
The math is that Tennessee is one of the states that sends $1 to Washington, and I think the last one I saw gets $1.19.
Well, we don't want
so
that.
We
just want to keep our dollar.
We get about a 19% return on our money, which is pretty
Well,
darn good.
let me give another stark example between conservatives and liberal progressives. Even though we're getting the benefit, that's wrong. It's just wrong. I'm willing. I'm saying,
John,
on principle,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this is
what
one.
You're basically threatening people too. You're going, hey, guess what? You've gotten used to getting this extra money. Well,
that's right.
Frankly, it's wrong.
I'm okay with what you're saying, John. You're arguing with yourself.
I'm not arguing with myself.
I'm just telling you, this is where I get crossways with your party. Stand up and tell the truth.
We do.
We want to take on more of the responsibility ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we want to pay for it.
That's right.
Hold on. Here's what it costs to run our school system now.
Okay.
If we don't get the federal money,
okay,
here's what we will have to pay for it.
Okay.
And what your taxes will have to be.
Okay.
Now tell us what you want us to do. I haven't
get
heard
rid
one
of the Department of
Republican
Education.
elected official make that
John,
argument.
Did you say get rid of the Department of Education?
Actually, Lamar Alexander said it decades ago.
I say get rid of the Department of Education.
Ronald
Just about
Reagan
every
said it.
Republican says get rid of the
You can
Department
get
of
rid of the
Education.
Department of Education, but that's a different
No,
question.
no. The argument with getting rid of the Department of Education is you abolish the federal bureaucracy. And you're right. It returns to the states, and all the states have to do it. But guess what, Franklin? That 19 cents, I'm willing to bet that we probably come out at least a wash and maybe ahead, because the federal bureaucracy takes a chunk out of all the money that goes up there.
We're already coming out ahead.
We're coming out ahead by stealing it from some other state, which
Okay.
is wrong.
I'm with you, John.
Then support.
But
what's
wait a minute. crazy
so
about
you
this?
support abolishing the Department of Education?
Not particularly.
You just said you're with me.
Not particularly.
You
I'm
just
just
said
pointing
you're
out
with
that
me.
if you want
Are
to
you
make
with
that
me or
argument,
not?
you have to go to the next step.
Why can't the states just handle it?
They should. That's what they used to do.
Because the lily-livered elected officials in Nashville
Obama
aren't willing to make the sacrifice that's required by that.
Well, here's the deal, Franklin. If we abolish the Department
And
of
it was been
Education,
real easy
then every
all these
state
years
will
to
have
blame
do
the
it.
Democrats, except now
Oh, what
the
years?
Republic for the last 25 years,
Which,
30 years.
wait a minute. And what's that 30-year based on? That's
They
how
were in
long.
charge
That's
of
how
the-
long we've had a Department of Education. Amazingly, we were
You
able to
missed the
educate
point,
children
John.
for
You missed the
decades,
point.
actually centuries before 1970.
John,
What, 5?
As I've just pointed out, the Republicans are in charge now.
Well, Jimmy Carter did it.
And they're not screaming so much about giving that money back. It's very simple. Send the money back and just do your own system.
We should.
That's
All right,
the
I
only
think-
that's the only leverage the feds have over you, is that you are getting more money than you're paying in.
Don't want it. Let's take a phone call. Caller, you're live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little information. One of my employees came in this morning, and you may already know this, but they said that they were at North Park Memorial last night, and they've already changed the bathrooms to be situated where they're co-ed, or anybody can go in any one of them.
All the perverts are going to be down there hanging out, aren't they?
That sounds like it to me.
This is at North Park Hospital, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Lord. We'll probably have something in the news by that next week.
Well, let me just follow up on that.
Thank you, caller.
The chairman or president of the state director of the Georgia American Civil Liberties Union has resigned her post because she said that I have shared my personal experience of having my elementary school daughters in a women's restroom when shortly after 3 transgender young adults over 6 feet tall with deep voices entered. My children were visibly frightened, concerned about their safety, and left asking lots of questions for which I, like many parents, was ill prepared to answer. Now, she's one of only 3 African American state directors of the ACLU. She said, I found myself principally and philosophically unaligned with the organization, and that there has to be some middle ground.
What's your opinion, Franklin?
I think it's largely much ado about nothing.
Well, let me give you a nothing statement.
He just asked me what I think.
I know.
That's what I think.
Let me give you a nothing statement. In Alaska, they are now allowing whatever you say you are, that's what you are. So I can't pronounce the name, Natafon Wangat, a male to female transgender athlete, has become the first trans student to compete for a high school state championship last week. So he, who now says he's a she, was on the track team. He beat out several girls on his high school track team to go to the state. Then when he got to the state, he beat several. He didn't win, but
he came in 3rd place, and I'm proud of those girls that beat him.
But he beat a significant number of girls. Now, the only question I would have for you, Franklin, now women have fought long and hard for equal rights, and they have demanded a place at the table to be equal. So what do you say to all the women who are now going to be displaced by a man posing as a woman?
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
I know.
Hold on. Let me.
This week.
Will you let me talk?
Did it happen in Alaska this week?
Yeah, and also it happened at Harvard University this past year, that a male athlete who
hang on, caller, we're coming.
A woman whose gender identity was male who got a swimming scholarship there, and after she got the scholarship, she decided that she was going to stick with her perceived gender, and she has swam on the male swimming team the whole time, even though she was a female and a world-class female swimmer. She's competed in every meet, come in last in every meet, but they've honored her scholarship and have welcomed her there, and
but frankly,
it's been no problem.
That's the exact opposite of what I'm talking
It's
about.
exactly right.
No. It's the exact opposite principally. That's her choice. So her choice is to disadvantage herself. This in Alaska, they disadvantaged young girls who had no choice. Allowing this boy to compete, and by the way, folks, the Olympics has now decided that they are going to allow you to participate based on your gender identity. Franklin, what do you think the Russians and the Chinese are going to do with this?
Cheat. Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller, if you're still there.
Well, I was going back to the federal funding through education, where Franklin had said we were advantaged by 19 cents per dollar of investment. If you look at the application of the requirements that the federal government puts in place, a lot of that money is pushed over into administrative areas. And we have said that if we were able to keep our money here in the state and administer it the way that we needed to for education, it would make a huge difference in all the states. It takes out actually 3 layers of bureaucracy and puts the money in the classroom.
I don't disagree with that statement. I'm just pointing out that there is a certain degree of logic that has to be applied.
Yep.
You can't scream about federal control over you when you are totally dependent upon their money and they're giving you more than you're paying them.
Well, what we're saying, Franklin.
No, I'm not. See, you're
no,
arguing
I understand
with
what
yourself.
you're saying, but the problem is, Franklin, that if you believe that, then you should be on the bandwagon with us saying, let's dissolve our connection to the federal government.
Believe that. But I believe that if you want to argue against this federal bureaucracy, then by definition, you need to be stepping up to the plate and telling people what that's really going to mean for them.
John, wait a minute. John, let's you and I say right now, ban the Department of Education.
Don't ban it. End it.
End it.
Okay,
Go ahead. Hold
end
it.
it.
Our caller's
End it.
still on the line. Go ahead, caller.
My point would be that if that money that was then still would be sent to the federal government, that money then, that percentage of money should be able to stay here. So what...
Well, if it goes past that dollar you're sending in, you might have an argument.
But
I don't know that
But
yet.
Franklin, one of the things she's saying is that they have all kinds of strings attached to it. So even though you get 19 extra cents, they also make you do a bunch of stuff that we probably wouldn't choose to do. So we may not even need that 19 cents.
Okay. That's an easy way. That's an easy fix, though.
Like
that not one
transgender
Republican
bathrooms?
has proposed.
Right, like transgender bathrooms.
But my point is that if the Board of Ed is done away with, we should be able to, as a country, then say that percentage of the dollar that has been being
Sent to Washington.
You got a lot stronger argument if your state steps up to the plate and says, we reject federal funding.
But here's but no, wait a minute,
Now
Franklin.
you make that argument.
Yeah, but
then.
let me, you just basically, though, as a liberal progressive, what you do is you put states at an extreme disadvantage with that. What we say is on a federal level, you ought to end the Department of Education, and then every state is on an equal standing.
Here's what I know. I know the states that are paying the most in federal revenues. In other words, there are states who are paying $1.20 for every dollar they get back. Those states, coincidentally, their school systems are doing better than ours. They're under the same mandates we are.
Is that New Orleans?
No, it's not New
Louisiana?
Orleans. No, it's most of those northeastern states you hate.
That Chicago?
New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut.
Actually, the highest per pupil expenditure systems are the lowest performing. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, New York City.
Michigan.
My point is, those states really have a stronger argument to make than we do, and they're doing just fine with it.
Franklin,
My argument would be that if we do away with the Board of Ed, we should be able to hold our money here.
Okay, but you've got to show me that that's more than the dollar. I mean, right now we're getting a 19% return on our money.
In other words, you're saying we've got to give $1.19?
No.
He's basically saying that he's okay robbing 19 cents from other states.
No,
I'm not
saying that. I'm saying if you're going to argue that you don't want the strings that come with that funding,
that's right,
then you have to pay for your own school system,
which will probably be cheaper when we don't have the strings.
It will.
You know what? You see if Governor Haslam makes that proposal next year.
But again, Franklin, what I'm saying is,
because he doesn't believe that, or he'd do it.
You know why? Because every state would, if they did it individually, like you're suggesting, then they're at great risk because the federal government could just say, "Well, we're glad you did that, but we're not going to give you your money." If we did it on a federal level and abolished the Department of Education, then every state would be on an equal playing field.
What happened in New Orleans when the storm wiped out all the schools?
Bobby Jindal went to almost exclusively charter schools, and the results for their achievement went through the roof. Their costs went down. It was a huge success.
Is that right, Franklin?
It's partially right.
Well, what's wrong about that?
Well, what he leaves out is that they had a massive outflow of students who left New Orleans completely. So the student population they had to educate.
So the dumb ones left and smart ones stayed. Is that what you're saying?
What you're talking about is primarily New Orleans.
I was not talking about New Orleans. No, I was talking about Louisiana.
Okay, well,
the whole state went to over, at one point they were close to 80% charter schools.
A massive outflow of students. So they had a lot fewer students to educate at that point. And that definitely makes it
a huge chunk of those students went to Texas, and they got educated just as well there.
Well, we're not looking at their numbers.
Well, my point is Texas's numbers didn't go down. Their achievement numbers didn't drop.
They also had a better school system than Louisiana did.
Let's move on a little bit.
Because it was Republican run. Republican run Texas, Democrat run Louisiana until Bobby Jindal took over.
All right, Obama is...
Yeah, look at Louisiana's budget and tell me how great he is.
Let's change the subject here, man. President Obama is dying to get in this campaign and help Hillary nowadays.
Which is inappropriate.
Why is it inappropriate?
Should we pay for him to ride around in that plane with our tax dollars?
That's not true at all after the primaries, after the nominating.
In the past, Franklin,
that's
presidents have chosen to show deference to the system and not inject themselves into it.
That's not true at all.
Did President Bush show President Obama respect by staying out of Washington, staying out of politics, not offering lots of comments on current? He showed some respect and some decency. This president doesn't have any of that.
I mean, really and truly, Franklin, is it
that
right
is
for
not,
him to...
That is not... You may use that example of him, but that has not traditionally been the case in American presidential elections.
Well,
it just
Franklin,
isn't true.
Let me ask you. Is it okay for him to use the big presidential jet to fly around and go make political speeches for Hillary?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
You're okay with that?
You're okay with that?
Yeah, sometimes.
So you'd be okay with the next Republican president doing that?
I've never made arguments about that. I don't make arguments about the president going on vacation. I don't care how many days George W. Bush spent at his ranch. It's a tough job for everybody who's the president. I think that's the kind of nonsense that gets us off track from talking about serious issues.
But
now, would that be serious issues like censoring official historical documents?
I think that State Department action is ripe for criticism.
Do you think they ought to find out who ordered it?
I think they absolutely should.
They're
find
not.
out. Well,
They're
maybe
not
they
gonna
will.
investigate.
Maybe they will.
No, they said they're done.
If there's a lot of investigations that go on in Washington during election season, and then they magically disappear afterwards. My guess is this is one of them. But investigate away, because I think it was a terrible mistake.
Well, I don't think that a president ought to go around politicking, using our tax dollars, wasting our tax dollars that way. Now then, the AP came out and declared Hillary a winner before the California election.
Which was terribly unfair to Bernie Sanders.
I thought that was very unfair to Bernie Sanders. Did you think it was unfair to Bernie Sanders?
Unfair?
Uh-huh.
I don't know about the unfair part. I would prefer that it not be done that way.
Well, the problem is, Franklin, they did it by counting superdelegates that you're not supposed to count until all the primaries are over.
Well, whatever you say. I mean, the facts are she got 3.5 million more votes than he did. She won 10 of the 11 biggest states in the country.
But Franklin, here's one. You're right.
She won an overwhelming
You're right.
majority.
Do you
of the
think?
primary.
Do you think the
Big
AP
deal.
swayed the California
That's the point,
vote?
though.
No.
How do you know that some of those 3 million that she got weren't because she had an unfair advantage?
What's the unfair advantage?
Well, all through Debbie Wasserman Schultz, all through it has been protecting her.
I mean.
How about the debates they had?
Last night, Bernie Sanders won North Dakota. Okay, you know how many people participated in the North Dakota caucuses last night? Less than 1,000. Well, that's the rules. That's okay. I'm not disputing that. But my point is, she overwhelmingly won this election.
You're right, but
big deal.
But here's the big deal, Franklin. It's bad enough for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to slant the election, the primary election, towards one Democrat over another Democrat. But that's you all's problem, and I don't care. It's you all's business. The Associated Press is supposed to be an independent organization.
Mm-hmm.
The press is who the public actually depends on to be sort of like the clearinghouse for honesty and integrity.
So what they did was reach out to all those superdelegates.
No, what they
interview them.
did was give a headline the day before the largest primary in the country.
By the way, she was polling ahead in that race anyway.
Look, I'm not disagreeing that she wasn't probably going to win. My point is,
John,
same thing we always have. You're going to argue some practical little thing. I'm going to argue a principle.
What we
It's
always
wrong.
do is you argue with yourself.
It's wrong.
I just told you I would prefer they not do that. Do I think it was a big deal? No. I don't think it was a big deal.
And in your defense, Hillary even said that she was upset with the AP.
They didn't want that either.
For changing the historical outcome the way it should have been.
It was not clear how that would turn out because a lower turnout might have hurt her too.
Well, and the other problem is it actually fits Bernie Sanders' argument that the whole establishment is rigged and slanted towards her.
Well, okay.
So it fit his argument.
I mean, she ran in the same establishment 8 years ago, and the more of an outsider beat her.
Right, because they turned against her.
The exact
Now
same
they're
system.
for her.
Exact same system.
Which was rigged for someone else is all you're arguing.
No. It was rigged for a black man with a Muslim name.
Yes,
really?
They rigged it for Barack Obama.
Yeah, because that was such an advantage.
It was last time.
I've got to ask this question before we leave today. Should the head of the IRS be fired?
Absolutely.
Franklin?
You mean the one who was there when the things happened that you're concerned about?
The one that's been
who
covering it up.
I don't know about the cover-up part of it.
Well, he took 3 years to release the list of which groups were targeted. And in the 3 years, he has padded it with a bunch of liberal groups to make the numbers look a little less conspicuous. He said it was 290 people. It's over 440 people now, groups.
Okay. If you say so, John.
It's the weaponization of government, Franklin.
John, I've said about 300 times on this show, I don't think the IRS should target people. I agree with you.
Well, then don't you think somebody ought to be punished for doing it?
However,
who's been punished?
Well, that person left.
No, they were transferred. They didn't lose their job or anything, Franklin. They were transferred and kept their pay, kept their job.
John,
nobody was punished.
However, the ultimate issue that gets brushed over is the way we've set up these systems that allow people to abuse the rules.
You mean like the 36,000 people in North Carolina that have voted?
These 501c3s and so forth are destroying our political system. And I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans.
All right, so Franklin, if you were working on that issue and those 501c3s said it'd take them 75 years to produce the evidence you need to prove your case, would you accept that? Would you accept it from those 501c3 organizations?
No,
75 years.
And I don't accept it from the government either.
Fine. Then you're condemning the Obama administration's release or claim of 75 years, right? You're condemning it.
Well, first of all, John, you realize that.
So that's a no.
First of all, they didn't say it's going to take us 75 years.
Yes, they actually
did. No,
did.
they didn't. It's going to take. They said it's going to take 25 to do this, 20 to do
but
that.
They have
but
to
they
do them.
No,
they have to. But they didn't say they could do them at the same time, Franklin. They actually said that.
John,
they said they could only produce 500 pages
Again,
a
you're
month.
arguing with yourself.
No, I'm not.
When you shave in the morning,
well,
do you stand there and argue with yourself?
Franklin, let me give you.
I mean, apparently you do.
I do feel now that you've said that over and over through this
when
thing.
You
I
wake
think
up
I need
in the
to
morning,
defend
do
myself.
you roll over and look at Lisa
let me say.
And just start arguing before she says anything?
You have accused me all day of arguing with myself.
You've
and
been
I think I
doing
have
it
to
all
defend
day.
myself. When I argue, I like to have an intellect to argue against. So I guess you're right. I'm arguing with myself.
Apparently, the only intellect you can find worthy of an argument is yourself in the mirror.
In this room, yes.
All right.
Hey, let me. I do want to say one thing. June 6th was the anniversary of the D-Day invasion.
Right.
We need to remember that there were 13,000 airborne troops that went in at 1:30 in the morning. There were at 5:30, 6 Allied divisions went in. From D-Day through August 21st, we suffered more than 226,000 casualties. And those men and women who supported that, they paved the way for the freedom that we have today, and we need to remember that.
I actually heard an argument made the other day that we ought to consider June 6th as a national holiday.
We probably should.
I agree.
By the way, today is Barbara Bush's 91st birthday.
Happy
birthday, Barbara Bush.
All right. I want to say thank you to Katie for coming in and giving your dad support. And also, I want to tell everybody, stay tuned Monday and watch Trump make a speech about the Clintons. It ought to be interesting. We'll be talking about it next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and